Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Samantha back here to show you how to do a perfect wire wrap bead link. This is one of those simple links that are fundamental to beginning your jewellery making journey, and if you can get your head around making this one, you can make all sorts of gorgeous things. This is the link that we're talking about. So as you can see, it's a little wire wrap with a hoop on either side and a bead in the middle, and these make gorgeous bracelets, and they also make beautiful necklaces. These are made with silver and blue pearls and crystals from a very famous Austrian brand that we can no longer mention. And you can make them with all sorts of different sort of shapes of beads. These are rondelle beads. These are tiny little quartz and silver beads. And these are lapis and silver. So I'm going to teach you how to make this one today. Like I say, it's a really good link to have in your stable. And these guys are really cute. And I know you're going to enjoy making these. Okay, so let me show you what we're going to need. So the tools that you require to make these are, again, pretty simple. I'll talk you through them. The first thing to say is that if you're going to be buying your tools, it's great to spend as much money as you want, but my advice is to spend as little as possible on these kind of tools, but spend quite a bit on a decent pair of flush cutters. The flush cutters are, I think, one of the most important tools in your armoury, if you will. I have this brand here because they have really tiny point and you can get right in very close. This brand are not too bad, but as you can see, they're not quite as pointed at the pointed end. So that's just one tip for you. Spend as much as you can on a decent pair of flush cutters. Okay, so you're going to need a pair of round nose pliers, and this is to make your hoops. You're going to need 2 pairs of chain nose pliers. The way I make my loops is I use pliers rather than my fingers, and I think it gives a much tighter and a much neater effect. So I'll show you that in a little while. And then again, obviously you're going to need some flush cutters. I'm going to use these ones today, just because you can get in really tight into the I've almost ruined them. Never mind. You can get really tight into the wrap and cut them quite neatly and quite close. Okay, so that's your tools. You're also going to need some wire. Now, there are plenty of wires out there, copper, silver, artistic wires, all sorts of different wires you can use. Today I'm going to use 0.8 millimeter, which is a 20 gauge. I prefer to use 8 millimeter wire, mainly because it's a little bit more stiffer than the 0.6 22 gauge, and it gives you a lot more control when you're doing the wraps. As you get more proficient at it, you can use lighter gauges, thinner gauge wires. As you get more control and more able to manipulate wire easily, you can go down. I've made wire wraps with 0.4 millimeter before for some tiny delicate work, but for today's purposes I'm going to be using 0.8 millimeter 20 gauge. You're going to need a ruler, just very basically, because I'm going to show you how many inches or centimeters you'll need for each loop, for each wrap. And you're going to need a Sharpie pen, and that's to mark your round nose pliers. And of course, you're going to need some beads. Today I'm going to be using these little 6 millimeter Amazonite beads. which I think will look really nice with the gold. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing to work out is how much wire you're going to need. So like I said in the intro, I'm going to be using 0.8mm 20 gauge wire today. I'm choosing to use the artistic wire just because it's good quality and it's easy to manipulate. So my best advice if you're a beginner is to use slightly more wire than you would need when you're more proficient, just because it gives you a lot more control over the wrap, and I'll show you why in a minute. So from my point of view, I would use 4 inches, which is just over 10 centimeters. You do get a little bit of wastage, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, as you're starting out, a little bit of wastage, we all go through it. It is what it is. Okay, so that's your 4 inches, 10 centimeter length. So the first thing we need to do is get our chain nose pliers and place it around about 1/3 of the way down your piece of wire. This part here is going to make up the first wrap and loop. So when you have it about 1/3 of the way down, use this finger and fold it downwards so that you have a 90-degree angle like this. Okay, this is the first part of the wrap. So then you take your round nose pliers. Now this is where your Sharpie comes in. You mark on your round nose pliers, have a bit of a practice beforehand and see how big you want your loops. For me, I want them around about this part on my plier, so I've marked it. Hold your wire, not too tightly, you don't want to squash it, but hold it sort of firmly so that you get good control. This wire needs to come over towards the front, so towards you. So with the pad of your finger, fold it over until you get to this point. Then you want to grasp it here and move your round nose plier 180 degrees and then re-grasp. Then this small short wire wants to be bent over the top. Keep everything neat and sharp so that you have this. Okay, so keep manipulating your wire so it's nice and straight. The neater you can make these, guys, the neater your wire wrap will be. So then you want to come in with your first pair of chain nose pliers and you grasp the hoop, the circle, pretty tightly, but again not too much so that you squish the wire. You don't really want to be having tool marks in your wire. Okay, then you come in with your second chain nose plier, grasp this short piece here and bend it underneath, then let go. Grasp it again, and wire goes over the top. Then grasp it again and underneath, and then over the top, and then underneath. Okay, so as you can see, you should have 3 wraps. And that's your first wrap and hoop done. Then what you want to do is get your flush cutters and cut as close as you can. Okay, which leaves that nice and neat. There is sometimes a little bit sticking up. I don't know if you can see that there, the camera. Yeah, it's focusing. So what you need to do is get your chain nose pliers and just give that a bit of a smush. Just round and round a little bit. Come at it from a different angle if you need to. Okay, and just pop that into place. Okay, and that is your first wrap done. Pat yourself on the back. That's the first bit done. Okay, so the next part of it is to choose your bead. So I've got some beautiful little amazonite beads here. One thing to say at this particular point is when you're choosing your wire and your beads, obviously make sure that your wire actually goes through your beads before you start. And as you can see, this one does. Now then, when you are making your wraps, some people like to have the hoops going in opposite directions. So this one flat and that one upright, if you will. And some people like to have the hoops going in the same direction so that both hoops are laying flat. That's entirely up to you from a design point of view. So today I'm going to have them going in the same direction. So I'll show you how to do that. So put your wire and your bead towards you with the hoop lying upright towards you. Okay. You need to then get your chain nose pliers. What we need to be doing here is creating a similar gap here. So we don't want any more than 3 wraps really. So I would suggest that you put the tip of your chain nose like so. If you do it up here, you're going to have about 4 or 5 or sometimes even 6 wraps, and that will make the wrap itself odd. You want it to be pretty much the same width on either side. So pop your chain nose pliers here. You want to do the same with this that you did with the first one. Okay, so grasp it relatively tightly and make a 45-degree angle. Can you see that this part here will be the same here? Okay. You then bring in your round nose pliers and do the same thing. Hold the wire so that you can see this little gap, this little piece of wire here, and hold it on the line that you've marked to make the same size hoop. Again, bring this wire forward towards you until it hits the bead. Then move your pliers 180 degrees, and then this wire over the top so that you have this shape here. Okay. The next thing is to bring in your chain nose and again grasp this hoop. Now I find for me that when I'm wire wrapping, if I have my pliers held straight, it interferes with the wrap a little bit. So my advice is to hold your wrap slightly on an angle, like so. Gives you a little more control, and it means that this doesn't get in the way and hit the pliers as you're wrapping. So you bring in your other chain nose pliers. Again, you want 3 wraps. So grasp underneath, keeping it as tight to the loop as you can. Over the top, underneath, over the top, underneath. So I've just misshot it slightly there, which inadvertently I've shown you what can happen if you make that gap with the chain nose pliers a little bit too big. So for this, just pop it over the top. Give it a gentle smush. And then take your cutters and again, cut as far down as you can, as close to the work as you can, should I say. And you see that little bit sticking out there? Give that a gentle squeeze. There you go. That's your your first link. So that was not too bad, was it? Okay, so these links are great because they're permanently linked. So they make really, really secure links for bracelets and necklaces and things like that. And as you can see, you know, once they're linked, you're not gonna be able to break those apart. Which is why this is a good choice for bracelets and necklaces, etc., because they are really, really secure. So the next thing we want to do is to attach the next one. So again, you take your wire and cut off around about 4 inches. Like I said, the better you get at this, the less wire you'll need, and you can make your wraps a lot more easily with sometimes, you know, sort of 3 inches of wire. Excuse me. Okay, there are some people that will make, you know, 10 or however many of these all at the same time, and then you can just grasp them. So that's entirely up to you. Okay, so let's do the process again. About 1/3 of the way down, bend the wire forward so you have a 90-degree angle. Bring in your round nose pliers. Pop your plier underneath the wire on your marker. Bend the top one over and then 180 degrees spin with your pliers. Pop this one shorter wire over the top. This is the part where we attach this little thing, this little link. So what you want to do is take the link, the hoop, pop it over this piece of wire and manipulate it gently until it's linked. I hope you can see that. Then that's when you come in with your little chain nose pliers. I like to use a narrow point chain nose for this, mainly because it gives you a lot more space to grasp this hoop here. Okay, so again, hold it securely. Bring in your other chain nose. Underneath, on top, underneath, on top, underneath. And then come in with your snippers. Okay, and then give that little piece of wire a little bit of a smush, tighten it up. So that it's nice and neat. If it's not playing ball, just come in and manipulate it a little bit and straighten things up. Okay, so that's your next link. So again, we want to choose a little bead. Pop your bead on. Okay, so again, this hoop, you want it to be straight, facing towards you. Take your chain nose. And you remember last time I gave it just slightly too much, so hold it here. Bend, 90-degree angle. I'm going to take your round nose pliers, pop it onto your marker, and this wire comes over the top till it hits the bead. Rotate your plier 180 degrees so you have this shape, and then again this wire gets bent over the top. So again, you have this shape here. Again, come in with your chain nose pliers and start to wrap as closely as you can to the hoop with control. Keep coming under and over and under. Straighten things up. Come in with your cutters, and again, as you can see, this guy here needs a bit of a smush, so gently straighten things up. And that's your second link made. So as you can see, it's a lovely link, and again, you can make it these hoops larger or smaller depending upon the gauge of your wire. And I'll just show you one more. So cut your wire. Take your pliers about a third of the way down. Round nose plier over the top, 180-degree rotation, and over the top. Take the other link, gently wiggle it into place so that you're not distorting that little hoop that you've just made. Okay, under, over, under, over, under. Cut. Straighten this up. Come in from a different angle if you need to. Take another bead. Pop it on. Keep it straight towards you. Pop your chain nose in, bend it down. Take your round nose up towards you. 180 rotation and bend it over the top. So each time you get exactly the same size hoop in your link. Take your chain nose, and continue to wrap. You're aiming for 3 wraps on each link. And the reason for that, I'll show you in a second. Let me just tighten this little guy up here. There we go. So it's nice and neat so that that bead isn't going anywhere. The reason why you only want 3 wraps really is that if you're making a bracelet, you need it to be sort of fluid and able to move around your wrist. If you make sort of 5 or 6 wraps, then the bead link will be too large and it will create like an angular or a square, and they'll stick up on your wrist and they won't have the flow that a bracelet should have or a necklace should have. I mean, you know, you can use those 4 or 5 or even 6 wraps if you wanted to for other things like earrings perhaps, but you get more like a fluid and a more it sort of fits the wrist better, as you can see. Okay, so that's a simple wire wrap link with a bead. I hope you enjoyed that. Pop in the comments and let me know how you found it, and what, you know, if you've managed to make yourself anything. And have fun with that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.